Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining me today. It is May 30th. We are live from South Florida, where it is hotter than hot, more humid than I care to say. But the good news is that we're represented here today by many other states here that probably have weather much nicer than mine. The goal today is hopefully to open your eyes as to the opportunities that exist in working with pre-foreclosures, distressed properties. And there's a lot of misconceptions about this area and what a pre-foreclosure is. Is it an REO? Is a pre-foreclosure an REO? We want to get all those things cleared up. But because I know that this is a very tough medium to communicate with, I move very fast and furious. My goal is to always get this done within about 50, 55 minutes so that I can go ahead and open it up for some questions. And then afterward, you can always reach out to us. Do I have an ulterior motive for doing this? Absolutely. We own the CDPE, the Certified Distressed Property Expert. I already see a lot of CDPs on the call right now. We are the best when it comes to training in the pre-foreclosure arena, especially as it pertains to short sales. So what I do is I preach this message by sharing with you ways that you can actually build your income and build your listing inventory. And what will happen is you'll get something from this next 50 minutes or so, and maybe you'll be motivated to actually take our course and earn our designation. I'm going to give for 50 minutes. So allow me at the last 5 minutes to do a sales pitch for why you should join the CDPE. And I'm going to give you special pricing. And I have a 2-for-1 offer that I got going on right now. I want to make it near impossible for you to say no. Would you agree with this statement that listings have always been the name of the game in real estate? But given the circumstances that we're in now, the issues with compensation and all the things that are happening, do we need to be listing agents now more than ever? Give me a thumbs up if you agree with that. Absolutely. And so what's happening is the pie continues to get smaller, but the agent count is still relatively high. Last time I checked, we have about 1.4 plus million realtors out there. And look, I may get in trouble for saying this, but why would I get in trouble? I'm independent. I don't have to answer anybody. I don't think the world needs 1.4, 1.5 million realtors. Really? Does the United States need that many realtors? Well, whether it needs it or not, we're not going to have that many when it's all said and done, because the changes that are going in the industry right now are going to diminish our ranks considerably. I'm on this quest to get agents empowered to go out there and just take the market by storm. Here's my belief. I believe that pre-foreclosures are the low-hanging fruit. Now, what happens is there's misconceptions around short sales. There's misconceptions around what pre-foreclosures are. So many agents tend to avoid it like the plague. I think that's a huge mistake. One of the illustrations I've used in many of my presentations is I show a big old tree. And I say, make believe this is where the listings grow, right? Because listings grow on trees. But they grow at the very top. The sweetest fruit is the very top. You're a relatively new agent, inexperienced agent. You get your listing presentation. You're all excited. You show up at that tree, but you didn't bring anything with you. How are you going to climb up to the very top where the listing is waiting for you, right? Well, these sellers typically interview more than one agent. The second agent brings a pretty tall ladder. I guess they've done this before. But then one will always show up with a cherry picker and go, and take the listing. And then what tends to happen is agents, when they kind of fail in that arena early on, they tend to become gun shy about going after listings, and then they become buyer agents. And we know the challenges that buyer agents are going to be facing as the lawsuits and all these things continue. What about this angle? What if instead of you going in and being interviewed, applying for a job, you were interviewing them? Yes, because that's what I teach. I believe that in this arena, this niche called distressed properties, they're desperate. They need assistance. They need someone to guide them. We have the leverage. We have the control. We actually interview them. I got to believe that most of you are going to like that better than the alternative, right? Now, you're not this person because you're on this call. But throughout the industry, and for the past 3 years since I acquired the CDPE, we brought it out of mothballs and put it back on the market. This is the type of feedback that I get from agents. But you know what's even scarier? I get this from associations of realtors. Yeah, associations of realtors are notorious, not all, but many of them are notorious for not wanting to mention any bad news to their members. Also, the executives of many real estate companies. Oh, no, no, we don't want to scare our agents. I mean, what do you mean scare your agents? This is just a part of life. This happens. Bad things happen to good people. Foreclosures have been around since real estate has been sold, and foreclosures never went away. So why aren't we helping people avoid foreclosure like the plague, right? But again, it's that mindset that's out there, and we're chipping away at it. It's getting a little better. We're getting better responses now. More and more people are reaching out to us saying, hey, listen, I'm seeing it. I'm seeing it in my market, and I want to be prepared. And that's what this is all about. Because we as real estate agents, we tend to be reactive. Why don't we be proactive? When it was 2008, 9, and 10, you guys that have your license back then, if you were licensed back in 08, 9, and 10, you knew that most real estate agents back then were chasing the market. Short sales were everywhere, distressed properties were everywhere, and the agents had no clue how to do it. So our classes were full to the brim of people just trying to catch up. And here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking, well, could it get that way again? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. But why not be ahead of the game? Why not lead as opposed to follow? And that's what I continue to do. Now, this is the most common response that I get. So I created a meme as a way of hopefully conveying my point. And that is, you could absolutely have a ton of equity in your property and still be losing your home. You guys shake your head, right? Am I right, Virgil? Yeah, absolutely. See, that's the part I just don't get, because we're talking about intelligent people here. Intelligent people, I'm going, understand something. About 62% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. You guys have heard these stats, right? About a third of Americans that make over $150,000 a year live paycheck to paycheck. I think the number now is up to about 45, only 45% of Americans have $1,000 in a savings account for an emergency. We have people buying using buy now, pay later, and already delinquent on those accounts. We got credit cards that are maxed out. When people get laid off or their hours get cut, and please, you hear the news just like I do. You know the layoffs are happening. They're starting to happen, and I believe it's going to continue to happen. What are the odds that the average American has enough in their savings account there to keep them going for a few months until they get reemployed? You know what the answer is, right? So this is what's happening right now. And then once you are unemployed, and once you fall behind on your payments, it doesn't matter how much equity you have. You can't tap it. You can't get to it. Now, if you were around back in 2008, 9, and 10, you'll agree with this. For every 10 foreclosures, properties that were in foreclosures, man, I got to say about 7, maybe 7 were underwater, meaning that they owed more on the property than it was worth. The only way to bail these folks out was by doing a short sale. Things are different this time around. That is what I had to adjust to this time around. Now, for every 10 foreclosures, it's highly possible that 7, 6, 8 have some amount of equity in the property, which is really crazy, because think about it. Why would you let the bank take your house away when you're sitting on equity? Now, I know you can't touch it. I know you can't access it, but wouldn't it just make more sense to list the property for sale with a knowledgeable real estate professional that can help you get as much money as you can out of the property, help you exit from that scenario, but most importantly, help you exit with dignity? And this is the message that I have been espousing for the past 3 years. Now, I am not a believer and we may disagree respectfully, I hope, that we are as equity rich as the pundits try to tell us we are. I think a lot of Americans have already tapped that equity, if you know what I mean. We are not a nation of savers. We've been a nation of spenders. And over the past 3 years, we had a lot of COVID money to spend. Well, that's all gone now. And the reality is that, you know, the people have borrowed against their house like an ATM. You know, they refinanced when the rates were great. They refinanced once, they refinanced twice, they pulled out cash. What about HELOCs? You hear all the talk now. You can get a 95% loan to value with HELOCs now. You think people are taking advantage of that? Absolutely. Now, how about this? Maybe you thought about this, maybe you didn't. You remember back during COVID when the government said, hey, y'all don't have to pay your mortgage payments. Wasn't that a great time? I mean, you're just sitting there going, are you saying I don't have to pay my mortgage payments? I don't even have to give you a reason? No, just don't pay it. That's not gonna hurt you. All right, let's do it. And we did it for 6 months, and we did it for 12 months, and then we did it for 18 months. And then if you were FHA, you did it for 24 months. And then that's what actually motivated me to buy the CDPE. Because when that happened, I saw the future. I had an epiphany. And I said, I get it. There's going to be millions of Americans that are going to take the government up on this offer. And a lot of them are going to be under the impression that they never have to pay that money back. How many of you know where I'm going with this? Those are called forbearance agreements. So every single day right now, somewhere in America, someone is trying to close on a property and they're finding out that there was a loan, a secondary loan on that property as part of a forbearance agreement that they did during COVID. Or there may be a partial claim mortgage from way back when they modified their loan back in 08, 9, or 10. This is happening every single day, folks. We are waking up. We are waking up to the fact that this is getting serious and we need to take some action. Now, I'm a believer that you are entitled to your own opinion, but not your own facts. Every time I do one of these, I want to support my argument with some numbers. This is an interesting one because this is an illustration of what we went through as an industry way back in 08, 9, and 10. You see, in 2010, we had the largest number of foreclosures ever. Well, things started improving. The market started getting better. The recession was over. People went back to work. People were making their payments. And you see that the numbers continue to go down. Now, in any scenario here, do you see where the numbers went to zero? No. There's always been foreclosures. Now, so what happened in 2020 and 2021 where there was such a sharp drop? COVID. And we had the moratoriums. You couldn't foreclose on people, yet somehow they did. Now, 2022 comes around, all the moratoriums are gone, right? And guess what? The numbers start inching back up. And then 2023 comes around and we're starting to knock on the door of pre-COVID numbers. There's the market. There is the opportunity. Now, I got to admit, I made some mistakes. When I first bought the CDP and brought it back, I became a little bit too passionate about being the Chicken Little, saying, you know that the market's going to drop. You know there's going to be a ton of foreclosures. You know there's going to be a wave. I fully admit that I was wrong. See, I had no idea that the American public was going to be that determined to continue to spend money. And so I wasn't the only guy that was wrong. How many people thought we were going to have a recession last year and the year before? And now you have conversations. We're in a recession. No, we're not. We will. I don't know. But I stopped doing that. You know why? I can't control what may or may not happen. I can just focus on the numbers that exist right now. And this is what I want to convey to you. Now, this is all regional. I use Atom data for stats, but there are certain states that are being very hard hit, and there are certain states that don't have a problem at all. Let's take a look at some of these numbers. Now, this came out recently for April. And these are the top 10 counties with the greatest number of foreclosure starts. Cook County, Illinois, LA, Texas is in the house today, right? But see, I am based in South Florida. We have two key counties down here, right? Three, actually, West Palm. But this one here, Miami-Dade County, is in 5th position. And then where I live, Broward County, is in 8th position. And we have one of the strongest markets in America here in Florida. We in Florida are still selling real estate and prices are still going up, if you can believe that. So how is it possible that we could be in such a strong economy and people are in foreclosure? Because it's two separate issues. People with money have money. People with means have means. We have people buying from other states moving here. We have people from other countries moving here buying. It doesn't mean that the person that lives here that's not barely able to get by is going to be able to make their payments. So this might be eye-opening for some of you to see that, it's happening. Now, here's some April numbers. Now, these numbers fluctuate from month to month. And, I don't not share something because it's not terrible, right? So April was a good month when it comes to foreclosures. We were actually down 4% in foreclosure filings against the month before and against the year before. So that's good news. Still a lot, but there. Now, what states have the highest rate? Maryland, Illinois, Nevada, South Carolina, and my home state of Florida right here. Again, these numbers are readily available on adamdata.com and other websites that give numbers out all the time. Now, what about population centers that have over 1 million people? Which ones have the highest foreclosure rates? Well, you got Cleveland, Baltimore, Chicago, Orlando, and Jacksonville. Once again, Florida, very well represented. Do you know that I have been after one particular executive in Northern Florida to let me go in and teach their agents about this? And they're ignoring me like I don't even exist. And I send them the numbers and I said, look what's happening in your market. And crickets. Because, of course, it's better to just leave them in the dark than tell them the truth and prepare them, right? This should scare you. It scares me. FHA mortgages, the delinquency rate is insane. More than 1 in 10 FHA mortgages is already in delinquency right now. I mean, think about it, folks. Without FHA, we probably wouldn't have a real estate industry right now. Now, let me put something together for you here. Remember, we're an equity-rich nation? All right, let's look at the people that bought in the last 2 or 3 years. People that bought in the last 2 or 3 years bought at the very, very top of the market, right? Some of these people actually paid above appraised price for the properties, right? There may be some softening in those areas. There may not be. But they went in with very little equity, right? All the FHA people only went in with 3.5% equity. All the VA people went in with 0 equity. But what happens when they can't make their payments and they have no equity to fall back on and prices may be actually going down a little bit in their area? Now we're seeing more and more properties go what? Underwater. Not making this up, folks. You can go ahead and verify this by yourself. Anyway, let me take a look at the chat area to see if there's any questions here. Okay, recording a session. Yeah, everything. We're getting recording a session. So here's what I like to do. Again, I got limited time, but not my first rodeo. I think I can get it done. I'm going to actually give you some of the excerpts from my class. For example, my class is divided up into 23 modules. And here's where I share what foreclosure is and what foreclosure isn't in module 5. Because we as real estate professionals, we have to know this. We can't go in and expect to help anyone if we don't even know what position they're in or what state that they're in. Understand this, foreclosure is a process, not a single event. Why do I say this? Because the average undereducated consumer, when they get that first foreclosure notice, many of them, too many of them, instantly believe that they have to exit the property. And they do, which is one of the biggest mistakes that a distressed homeowner could do, is to exit the property prematurely. We have to be able to explain this to them. Now, the foreclosure process varies from state to state, so it is state specific. One of the things that I like to point out is that short sales are done the same all through the country. There's no Florida approach to short sale versus the Texas approach to short sales. They're all the same, but the foreclosure process can vary. For example, is your state a judicial state, which means all the foreclosures have to go through the court system? Or is it non-judicial, which means a faster remedy because the plaintiffs could sue outside of the court system? Or is it both? I can't answer for many of you because I don't live in your state. Florida is 100% judicial. California is both. Many areas are judicial. So find this out because it's very crucial that you know the foreclosure process and especially the timeline. You have to understand how much time they potentially have before the property is auctioned off. We do see foreclosures for property tax delinquencies, and we see way too many foreclosures now because people are behind on their association payments. If you are trying to help someone that's in a distressed situation, please, please, please find out immediately if they have an HOA. And please hope that they're current on their HOA. I can't speak for every area, but in Florida, many associations have become very predatory. They want to foreclose on the properties because they want to take the property back, rent it out for a period of time, and then when the lender finally comes after them for the property, they just pretty much hand it back to them. But they were able to rent it out during that time and net a tremendous amount of money. So this is what the definition of foreclosure is, right? Now, timelines, there's what the book says, and then there's the real deal, right? You know who could tell you the real deal are the attorneys that specialize in foreclosure defense. These are the ones that are going in there every day representing, defendants. They could tell you on average how long it's taking from the time the person gets behind or actually foreclosure is filed against them until they actually lose the property in the sale. Now, I'll go ahead and say this because it confuses people. In my class, I tell somebody calls you, and this is what happens, right? Somebody will call you and hopefully, or you call them, and you find out that they have a sale date in 2 or 3 days. In 2 or 3 days, the property is going to be auctioned off. An uneducated real estate professional will say, I'm sorry, I wish I could have helped you. A CDPE will say, you have to come in immediately. We got to sit down. We got to strategize. I got to list your property. We got to get a contract right away. And then we got to go in and try to get that date pushed back. So what I'm saying is that when you know what to do, you can take a listing on a property that's being foreclosed on up until the day of the actual sale date. And a lot of agents are like, I didn't know you could do that. I go, absolutely, you could do that. Now, when does it begin? Well, in the old days, it was insane. In the old days, in Florida, you could have gone 3 years without making a payment and the lender wouldn't bother you because we had hundreds of thousands of foreclosures. They didn't want the house back. And some areas were very aggressive. Texas, one of them, very, very aggressive. Now, federal law was passed, and now the servicers are not allowed to initiate foreclosure action against someone unless they're at least 120 days delinquent. Y'all get that? 4 months. Now, sadly, by the time many people actually reach out to one of us or we make contact with them, it's already gone way past this timeline. But that's an important thing to know. That's called default. Now, every state has a different way of notifying that individual that they're now being sued, that they're now in foreclosure. And for example, in my state, it's very, very borrower friendly. They have to be personally served, these papers. Some states, all you got to do is publish it in a newspaper or put a flyer in a public location or something like that. Find out how it is in your area. It might be called notice of default. It might be called notice of petition or complaint. In Florida, it's called a les pendens. But get familiar with the terminology in your state so you can sound like you know what you're talking about. Now, a lot can happen between here and here, and it varies from state to state. But here's what we're trying to avoid at all costs. We're trying to avoid the property being sold off at auction. Now, when that happens, the bank actually sells it directly to an investor, maybe, or in many cases, the bank will take the property back and turn around, maybe fix it up, maybe not, list that property for sale at some point in the future with one of the agents that they have a relationship with, and they'll go on the market as an REO, which stands for real estate owned. Those are properties that have been foreclosed on. These are people that we were not able to save. We cannot help those individuals. The goal of the CDPE is to do everything possible to help avoid that. Now, the two ways we help avoid it is, can we help them stay in their home? Is there any way that we can introduce them to someone, get some assistance for them to help them stay in their home? Sadly, many times we can't. Or if they have no choice but to leave, please write this down if you're able. We help them exit with dignity. See, there's no dignity in being shown to the curb by the sheriff. Our goal is to help them exit with dignity, have the least amount of negative consequences against them. Some states have a redemption period. Most do not. And that is a time that even after the foreclosure, the owners get to stay in the property a little bit longer. Like Minnesota and Michigan are notorious because the foreclosure process in those states is very quick. Well, it's very quick on the front end because after the sale date in Michigan and Minnesota, the lender has to hold off for an entire year from repossessing that property. That's just the way the Michigan law works. Are there consequences to foreclosure? Absolutely. And here's what I believe every agent should know. You should know these by heart. You should commit these to memory. These are your arrows in your quiver because people are motivated. Okay, we need someone to mute themselves there. People are motivated by one of two things, right? They want to avoid pain or they want to obtain pleasure, right? The carrot or the stick. And this is where we have to know what to say, when to say it, how to say it, and say it to enough people to make a difference. Am I making sense there? There are negative consequences to foreclosure. For example, how long is a stay on their credit report? Well, 7 years. That's an awful long time. 7 years it stays on their credit report. Now, is there a chance that they'll want to buy again in the future? Most will. But if they have a foreclosure on their record, they can't get a conventional loan for maybe 5 to 7 years. FHA is a little less. But let's say it was underwater and you helped them to successfully do a short sale. They might be able to buy again in as little as 2 to 3 years. That's a huge difference. This is something that can empower you to either scare them by saying, man, you don't want your credit tanked for 7 years. No, I don't want that. And what if they say, I could care less about my credit? Okay, obviously the stick didn't work. Let me dangle the carrot. Well, let me ask you something. Do you think that you'd want to be a homeowner again sometime in the future? What do you think the answer would be? Sure, of course I would. Okay, I thought you'd say that. So let me ask you this. Would you, A, want to live with the restriction of not being able to buy again for 5 to 7 years, or have the option of being able to buy again in as little as 2 to 3 years? If you let me help you with a short sale. I got to believe that most people, when you present it that way, are going to say, well, yeah, I really would like to have that option, right? Of course you would. Now, it becomes public record for basically the rest of your life. You know why? Because let's say 20 years from now, 10 years from now, they want to go buy a home and they're filling out a 1003 application. It's going to ask them, have you ever had a foreclosure or deed in lieu? It's going to follow them for the rest of their lives, which is not a pretty thing. Credit scores get tanked. And you know, once your credit tanks, you start paying more for everything, right? You pay more for home insurance, auto insurance, credit cards, everything, because you're high risk. Now, some states, like mine, are deficiency states. That means that the lender has the right to go after these folks to recover what they lost. Now, think about that. How many people out there walk away from the home thinking, okay, fine, let the bank take the house. We're done. It's over. And they think that they can get out and get on with their lives, only to find out that later on, they're being sued for tens of thousands of dollars, if not more, because the bank lost that much in the process. So find out if your state allows for deficiency judgments. Let's talk employment. Many careers require the individual to have a security clearance. Well, you may not even know this, but a foreclosure or a bankruptcy could take your security clearance away, which means these folks are unemployed now. Now, I can't guarantee that in a short sale they wouldn't do it, but we have gotten many, many reports from HR and everything else saying, no, as long as you do a short sale, you're okay. Now, I talked about this already. Let me see. Tax liability. All right. So, Uncle Sam, do you understand that in our country, when debt is forgiven, it becomes taxable income? Did you all know that? Imagine this, right? You do a foreclosure is done to you, or you do a short sale, and the bank loses $75,000. They lose $100,000, and they decide not to come after you. They have forgiven this. You know what you get? A 1099 for that amount. Now think of the shock of opening up your mail and seeing a 1099 for $100,000. What does that do to your income tax debt that year? Well, for many years, there were fewer options. But one thing that COVID did bring about is when the CARES Act was passed, they went back to an old thing called, well, in the old days, in 2007, it's called the Mortgage Forgiveness Debt Relief Act. Yeah, back then in 2007, all the way to 2012, there was potential relief for individuals that qualified, but then it went away. And then since it wasn't front page news, there was no motivation to put that back into legislation. But with COVID, a similar program was implemented. It's not called the mortgage forgiveness, it's called Qualified Principal Residence Indebtedness Exclusion, QPRI. Now, I'm not a tax professional, nor do I want you to be a tax professional, but I do want you to know enough to introduce them to a tax professional. Because here's what's sad. I believe in this saying a lot, and that's called just because you can doesn't mean you should. You know, an agent that's licensed in their state for real estate can do short sales, but it doesn't mean that they should. And there are too many people right now taking listings of distressed homeowners to have no clue what they're doing. And they're not sharing these facts with those homeowners. And then a rude awakening comes later on. This is good news. Now, it's not as generous as it was before, but this is going to help thousands, if not 10,000s of Americans to owe less and maybe not owe any money at all should their property be foreclosed on or they do a short sale. So look into that. Again, I can only give you tidbits here. I can't go into a lot of specificity because I just don't have the time to get into this with you. Always, always seek the assistance of a tax professional or attorney, and you need them on your team. If you're going to do short sales, especially, you got to have them on your team. Here's the thing. I can't say never. I never say never, but I seldom, if ever, will lose the argument to someone that a short sale, if they're underwater, of course, if they're underwater, is infinitely preferable than having a foreclosure on their record. And this is a marketing piece that we provide our members that you can use as a handout. And you can go ahead and put it out there for them, okay? Now, let me see if I can get this very, very clear, because if I don't, I failed you. If they have equity and they're also in foreclosure, this is potentially a regular sale, but with urgency. You all understand what I mean by that? If they have equity, it's not a potential short sale. You have to be underwater. You have to owe more than the property is worth. Believe it or not, it may sound simplistic, and you're thinking, Tony, do you really have to explain that? Yes, I do. Remember, I teach this for a living. I've seen the agents in front of me go, I don't know what a short sale is. This is important because there is still equity in the market. If you know for a fact that there is enough there to pay off the lender or lenders, any association, all of the closing costs, your fee, if all that's covered and they walk out with some money, that is not a short sale. You don't have to use any of the paperwork and forms that are associated with short sales. But here's what you have to do. You have to make sure that you get it listed, sold, and closed before the sale date. Does that make sense out there? It is a regular sale with urgency. Now, what are you going to do for folks that are underwater? Well, the typical real estate agent doesn't know what to do. My CDPEs have been trained to help them. Now, is a short sale something that the bank gives away like ice cream and everyone qualifies? Absolutely not. Here are the main qualifications. There must be hardship, a material change that has taken place from the time they first bought the home until now that prevents them from being able to make their payments. Something bad happened, right? And it's usually the suspects here. These are the reasons that so many people went into foreclosure in 2008, 9, and 10. And guess what? It's the same now. Now, I will admit, back then, the number one reason initially was because they had adjustable rate mortgages. And the mortgage rates reset and people's payments went insane, right? Well, that's not going to be the reason this time around because there have been so few adjustable rate mortgage loans out there. But are you seeing that they're starting to come back? Yeah, but here's what's different this time around, right? Their mortgage payment may be the same, but their property insurance payment is not. Their homeowner insurance is not. Their association payments are not. Their energy bills are not. Their food bills are not. You see where I'm going with this? If the average American family is living paycheck to paycheck, how do they absorb an additional $200, $300, $400, $500 a month in expenses without it eventually leading to foreclosure? That's going to be employment driven. I think that's going to be the main reason why so many people are going to go in foreclosure this time around is they simply can't keep up with the cost of living. Their income is not keeping up, or there is no income because they lost their job. Now, can they get the bank to work with them if every month they're making more than enough money to cover their bills? Doubtful. So qualification number 2 is that they should have a monthly income shortfall. That means that there's more month at the end of the money. In other words, their expenses exceed their income. Something you need to understand is some sellers, potential sellers, may be uncooperative. They may not want to be forthcoming with or transparent with their documentation. Do not take those folks on as customers. You're just asking for pain. You can't expect the bank to just give away their money unless you can document that you're in a difficult situation and you cannot afford your payments. You have to stress to them from the very beginning when you first meet with them, are you willing to cooperate and provide full disclosure? If they even hesitate, you need to hesitate. Okay? Now, there's a third one, and that's called insolvency. Insolvency is a fancy word for broke, right? If you have $100,000 in a savings account, but you can't make your monthly payment and you want the bank to lose money, will they do it when you have that much money sitting in a bank account? Probably not. So this is something that's the big 3: hardship, monthly income shortfall, and insolvency. Let's go ahead and do this. Are there any questions? Anything else? Here, yes, exit with dignity. Fantastic. Let me do this. Let me take about 5 or 10 minutes and give you some strategies for generating, because people always ask me, how do I start building this funnel? Well, here's the first thing I recommend, and that is if you're a CDPE or if you're not, become one, because you want to set yourself apart from the competition. You know, I'm a big believer in niche marketing. I believe that we have too many general practitioners in the industry. We need more specialists. I believe that pre-foreclosures is a niche, and that someone that's trained in the CDP approach is in a much better position to service these folks and get that listing and get that successful closing. If you make the investment, then be proud of the investment and wear the CDPE colors, wear the pins, use the logo on all of your marketing, put it on your signature, and make sure that you feature this in your presentation. Now, I'm going to move quickly, so stick with me here. Here's what I ask people to do in my class. I ask them to draw 3 columns on a sheet of paper. If you can do it, 3 columns. First column, go ahead and put column A, and then B and C. Under column A, I want you to write 70% underneath. That means I want you to spend 70% of your time, your lead generation time in this arena in section A. Section B, I want you to spend 20%. And then section C, 10%. You got me? I want you to work backwards. People look at me and say, what do you mean working backwards? And that is that you need to focus on people that have a sale date first. Think about this. When someone's behind on their payments and they're losing their home, they're going to try to stay there as long as humanly possible, right? Because they're not paying any rent. They're not paying a mortgage. Where are they going to go that they're going to pay that little? It's just human nature. What I found is that if you start working with them or you try to reach out to them too early, they ignore you. But when you find, and all this is public record, it's all on the courthouse sites and it's on other websites as well, work backwards. Focus on the ones that already have a sale date, because those people are almost out of time and they should be out of excuses. Now, the second group, the 20% group, those are people that are officially in foreclosure. You know they are because it's public record, but there's no sale date yet. Their situation isn't as dire. Now, it could change overnight, but it isn't as dire. Now, the third group, the 10% group, are the people that you have no clue exist. It's not on public record anywhere. You know why? Maybe they're only 2 months behind. Maybe they're only 3 months behind. Maybe they're 4 months behind, and the bank hasn't initiated foreclosure action yet. How do you find out who these people are? Well, that's where your social media marketing comes in. That's where your referral base comes in. You want to reach out to people with a message that says, if you or anyone you know is behind on their mortgage payments and doesn't know what to do, please reach out to me. I may be able to help you. I hope that makes sense, right? Now, next, this is something new I started teaching. Keep an eye on short-term rentals. What do I mean? Airbnbs. You know how this became the thing to buy during COVID with all the cheap money. And here's what I'm a big believer in, right? We talk about having a shortage of inventory. If all these folks that had 2, 3, and 4 Airbnbs ever put their properties on the market for sale, we wouldn't have an inventory shortage. We don't have any inventory because small groups of people have large amount of properties. But what's happening in the short-term rental arena? Well, cities, counties, states, associations are cracking down on them. They're saying, no mas, we don't want them here. We had a neighbor in our subdivision that was using his property as an Airbnb until the association found out and shut him down. New York shut it down. Hawaii is shutting it down. I think Maui has implemented something already. So what's happening between this and the softening of the economy, the oversupply, the under demand? A lot of these folks are not netting or generating the income that they used to on these properties. They're going to have to let go of some of these properties. You need to find out how to reach them. Maybe pull up a list of absentee owners and start to reach out to them and say, hey, listen, you know, maybe it's time to exit and take your money and run. This is something brand new that I just started teaching maybe about 2 or 3 months ago. And that is, there's a huge amount of potential in reverse mortgage short sales. See, we have an aging population out there, right? And a lot of folks have taken advantage of the fact that reverse mortgages can be the solution for them. You know, they go ahead and they pull a certain amount of equity out of the property, and they no longer have to make the mortgage payments anymore. Well, they still got to make the property taxes and pay insurance and any associations, but the mortgage payments go away. Now, what happens is people tend to live much longer now than ever anticipated, and they may be in that situation for 10, 15, 20 years. And every time they don't make a payment, that amount gets added to the back of the loan. Well, what happens over 20 years? The amount that's owed on that property will end up significantly eclipsing what that property is worth. What is that called? A potential short sale. And who's usually left holding the bag in that scenario? The heirs, you know, the ones that inherit the property. They inherited it. Now they got to go ahead and dispose of it, but it's underwater. And you know what? I was talking to one of my preferred short sale negotiators, and she was telling me, Tony, this is the closest thing to a slam dunk I've ever seen. I mean, really, it's just almost automatic to get a reverse mortgage short sale approved. And I actually interviewed her, and I have that for my members as one of my coaching calls, because once a month I do a coaching call as a group, and then a lot of folks can't attend because they're working, but that's okay. I upload it into the portal for you to see it later. If you're a CDPE now and you haven't taken advantage of this, knock it off, take advantage of it. And if you are not a CDP, upon graduation, you will have access to all of these resources. All right, what else? All right, so this is the one I was telling you about. I did this class back in March. This recording is available to members, and you're gonna love it. It's tremendously insightful. Go after expired listings that used to be short sales. Think about it. It was a short sale, but something went wrong. The property expired. They haven't lost it yet. If they haven't lost it yet, there's still a chance that you can rescue them. Always verify that they haven't listed with anybody else, and also verify that they haven't in fact lost the property, and then call them and reach out to them and say, has your situation changed? Are you okay now? What do you think the chances of that are? Well, so long as it's still before the sale date, you can potentially help them. This could be a tremendous area of opportunity for you to go ahead and take more listings. I am a believer in trying to leverage my time. I don't like doing one-on-ones with folks because I say a message for an hour and then the next minute I got to say it all over again. I'm a believer that if you're decent at speaking or you're not afraid to try it, put on your own foreclosure prevention workshops. And I think doing them virtually is the best way to go. Now, when you're brand new and you're kind of learning this, I wouldn't recommend you do it alone. I would probably invite a foreclosure defense attorney or a tax professional to be on the call with you, because it can help you with some of the heavy lifting. But if you're comfortable, you can do it now. If you're multilingual, then that's even better. You can do it in English, Spanish, whatever. What I like about the Zoom approach is the same thing that I'm doing now. Zoom is great and not so great at the same time. I'll give you an example. There was 160 of you registered for this Zoom. Now, when I was first getting started, I would get excited. I would say, oh my God, there's going to be 160 people on this call. There's 31 of you on the call. Okay, that's what happens with Zoom. We register, we don't go. But what do we always do? We record it. So it doesn't matter whether you have 5 or 50 people on that call live. You're going to record it. And then it's something that you'll be able to leverage and use for a long time. Does that make sense? What do you think the biggest challenge is going to be for one of you all to put on one of these? Let me answer that. You don't know what to say. You don't know how to say it. You don't have the slides. You have no clue how to present this. All right, so you know what I did about a month ago? I said, I've had enough. I did my own. I put on one on May 16th, and this was not for agents. This was for consumers. I promoted it to consumers. I'm a broker. I got 230 agents, and I invited my agents to go ahead and invite distressed homeowners on the call. And I said, guys, let me do what I do best. You just get them on the call. But then I got an idea. I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to allow CDPEs to be a fly on the wall. I invited CDPEs to attend the webinar and watch me do it. You guys following me? And then I recorded it. Now CDPEs can go into the portal and listen to me doing exactly the way it should be. And you know how I even made it better? Think about this. I even gave you the slides. I even uploaded the slides, people. So now you have the PowerPoint and you know what to say in each slide. I don't know what else I'm supposed to do. But this is available for CDPEs so that you can start putting on these webinars across the country. Telephone prospecting can be very, very effective, but introduce yourself as a foreclosure prevention advocate. Listen to me. If you call them and say, hey, I'm Tony Martinez with ABC Realty, and I'm calling because I know you're in foreclosure and I want to see if you want to list your house, they're going to hang up on you because you're the same as the bank. You're trying to get rid of them. You're trying to take the house away from them. What if you call them and say, listen, I'm a real estate agent, but more importantly, I'm a foreclosure prevention advocate. And I'm reaching out to individuals that are going through difficulty right now to see if there's anything I can do to help you. Who can I introduce you to? What resources can I put in your hands? You see how much better that's going to be? Same thing if you're door knocking. Now, I'm always a believer, never door knock by yourself. Don't do it. For safety reasons, do not door knock by yourself. And also, when you have a partner with you, an accountability buddy, you keep each other going. Because, some people are going to be rude. Some people are going to curse you out. They're going to slam the door in your face. And then you're going to say, oh, forget this noise. I don't need this kind of abuse. I can get it at home. So you just go ahead and say, I'm done. Well, if you have somebody with you, say, knock it off, man. We said we were going to talk to 5 people today. That's just number 1, okay? And once again, don't dress in a suit. Don't look like you're a process server. Just look like you're a normal person and introduce yourself as a foreclosure prevention advocate. And here's critical. Write this down. If you know they have a sale date, take proof of that with you, because so many of them are not even going to be aware that they're losing their house in 3 days or 3 weeks. Trust me on this, okay? Once you become known as an agent that is really, really passionate and effective in working with short sales and distressed properties, you have the potential of getting a lot of business from other agents, because most agents don't want to touch it because they're scared. They don't know what to do. Don't be a secret agent. Don't be shy about promoting yourself to the other agents in your office, in your area, and within the CDPE network as well. You can't just sit there and be quiet in our Facebook group. We have a private Facebook group. Introduce yourself, participate. Let them know you're looking for referrals in your market area. All right. So in the time I have left, let me give you my sales pitch. Be courteous and hang in with me for 5 minutes. I'd love for you to be a CDPE. We're growing. Of course, it's not like it was in 2008, 9, and 10 when we grew to 50,000 members, but you never know. You never know what brings. But I'm really, really happy to see that more and more agents are waking up and saying, I want to help people. I want to be in a position I can help them. So how do you become a CDPE? Well, I have 3 ways that you can do it. You can take my online on-demand course. It's pretty cool. That's me. Okay, you probably figured that out already. But there's 10 levels, 23 modules within 10 levels. If you did it start to finish in 6.5 hours, you're done. When it's online and on demand right now, it's self-paced. You have a year to do it. Now, please don't take a year, but you can do it at your pace. You want to put an hour here, half hour here. You want to do it at midnight. You want to do it 4 o'clock in the morning. That's all you. And something that's changed when I went to a new platform, I no longer have quizzes at the end of each chapter, and I no longer have a final exam. So this is pretty cool. Now, the next way that you can do it is, when possible, there are some live in-person classes. For example, I'm doing some private ones for the Miami Association of Realtors. We got 3 coming up. If you have questions about that, or if you're a Miami Association member, look on their calendar. I just got an invitation to speak on August 13th in Glendora, California. So that's coming up. That's going to go on our website today or tomorrow. So if you're in that vicinity, in that, the Southern California area, what a great opportunity to catch it live and in person, me there teaching it myself. You know what's the perfect combination of both, though? It's when I do a Zoom class. When I do a Zoom, I do it over 2 days because I don't want to overwhelm you. I do 3.5 hours and 3.5 hours. And the reason why it's 7 hours there is because I want to allow plenty of time for Q&A. I always encourage people that if you can commit to those 2 days, do the Zoom one because you get to ask me questions, right? There's ways to interact with the rest of the audience as well, and you get to learn from their experiences, right? Here are the dates for the Zoom one coming up. It's coming up June 12th and 13th. June 12th and 13th. Now, it's not just a class. It's a class that entitles you to membership in our organization. When you pay the fee, you get a year's membership, and then it's only $99 a year after that. What do you get with the membership? Well, you get to use the logo and call yourself a CDPE. You have access to all the forms and resources. We've introduced a new portal, and we're getting so many compliments of how much content I have put there. And what I'm trying to encourage CDPs to do is go there at least once a week. Go there often and download something and study it. There's the completion certificate, so you can probably display it. There's our Facebook group that's private that you can join. Since I do other events, like I recently did my own conference, I always give CDPE special pricing. And then there's the referral network. This is CDPE to CDP. I'm not involved. You guys work out whatever referral fee between you all. These are the benefits in addition to the course itself. This is that portal I was telling you about. You go in here and you say, oh, look, this is that form Tony talked about. Oh, here's the preferred partners. Oh, the presentation. Tony said that there's a place where I can see how to do my own workshop. Yep, it's under homeowner presentation. Here's where we have scripts and letters that you can use. The videos for the coaching that I do once a month. Here's where you find CDPs. It's all there. This is members only. You can access this 24/7. Here's an example of you submitting your information to be added into our Find a CDPE database. This is how you might be found by another CDPE looking for an agent in your area. I sell the course for $499. I'm going to give you a special price, so don't go away. But $500, it includes the class, and it includes the first year's membership. I think that's pretty cool. But here's the special, because you got to have a special when you do Zoom, right? Let me go here, $399. Ignore this expiration date. I was in a hurry this morning, and I didn't get that done. I'm going to save you $100. If you go to cdpe.com or cdpdesignation.com, if you want the online or if you want the Zoom version, either way, when you get to the cart, when you get to the checkout cart, put it in this coupon code, Zoom100, and it'll bring the price down to $399. You got me? Now, here's my special. I'm going to give you a 2-for-1. For those of you that are on this call and hear the recording later, for the $399, we'll give you immediate access to the online on demand, and we'll also give you access to the Zoom class coming up next month. How can you go wrong with that? You get to work on the content now. You might even knock out the class already, but then you could hear it again live virtually with me and then be able to ask me questions and everything else. I think that's an amazing deal. I started doing this a few months ago, and I thought, you know what? Why not? I'm going to do the Zoom anyway. And someone that's already paid me $399, just throw it in, and they get double the training. Hopefully, it will stick. Anyway, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Question here is, where do I get pre-foreclosure leads? Well, you get them free at the courthouse. You know, all the courthouse sites, that's public information. For example, programs like IMAP in South Florida, the MLS over here uses a program called IMAP. IMAP lets you search pre-foreclosures absolutely free. Now, there are paid services like RedX. I have a relationship with RedX as an affiliate, so you get special pricing. And then that gives you a list on a daily basis of people that are in foreclosure. And it also includes email addresses and includes telephone numbers. And they scrub the phone numbers against the do not call list, which is critical. You don't want to screw up in that area there. All right. Anyway, so I think I did it in the allotted time, right? Just a little over an hour. Does anybody have any questions at all? Jeanette, go ahead and put the link support at CDPE and the phone number. I went fast. You may have a question. You may need to walk through. Jeanette is amazing at explaining everything. She'll post a phone number there. She can do a one-on-one call with you, or you can write to support at CDPE, and we'll go ahead and answer any questions you have. But if I was able to convince you that now's the time to become a specialist in this niche, then there is no better class to do it with than the CDPE. And now you get to save $100 and you get 2 for 1. And let's see what we can do to help you not only stay in this business, but to thrive in this business. Are there any other questions before we conclude the Zoom? Going once, going twice. All right, let me take a look. Do you send reminders for yearly pay? Absolutely. You know I want to get paid. I got to keep pay the bills. So yeah, what happens is when you actually, well, our system has improved. When you sign up now, it might automatically be billed, or we will send you a reminder with at least a month ahead of time to let you know, hey, you're $99. By the way, $99 a year for everything I give you is ridiculous. That's 27 cents a day. And I work very hard. My team works very hard to increase the value so that it's almost impossible for you to say no to renewing. We don't want you to do it for 1 year. Typically, when we lose people now, it's because folks are retiring. You know, that just happens, or they're exiting the business. That's attrition. Do you get credit for our local board? No. Great question. See, I'm a private designation. Remember I mentioned I don't get a lot of cooperation from boards and everything else? Miami Association is the exception. We are private designation with no affiliation with NAR. So none of the NAR stuff comes with me, okay? But if you've been shopping around, you know that some of the best training programs on the market are private designations. I think that does it. I think we did it. Folks, thank you so much. I hope that you decide to take some action, go out there and get help. And look, whatever we can do on our end to help you, we're in this together. Thank you so much. God bless you. Take care.